This is your captain speaking, Han Solo. I had a guest scheduled to go live with me, but I've been fully ghosted, so I'm just going to press forward by myself. So I wanted to talk about something that came up today. I had a conversation with the missus, and she told me about this podcast she'd been listening to recently. What up, Jesse? Yo, brother. She told me about a podcast she'd been listening to recently about successful relationships. And I listened, and she told me about it, and she said basically what the host said, the host of this podcast, was that in order to have a successful relationship, in order to have a really good relationship between a man and a woman has to be like a cat, like a black cat, and the man has to be like a golden retriever. And she said, I got to get closer to the Wi-Fi here. Reconnecting to Wi-Fi. All right. I've tapped back into the Wi-Fi. Let's move. How's that going? Is that clear? So anyway, we're having this conversation. And she said, the host of this podcast said, a successful relationship involves the woman being like a black cat and the man being like a golden retriever. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So what you're saying is the woman is in the position of being aloof, being distant. The woman is in the position of coming to you when she wants you and pulling back when she doesn't want you. But the man is just like this golden retriever who's always giving, who's always bouncy and friendly and wants to have a cuddle, wants to have a pat. Just give me a thumbs up if this Wi-Fi is okay, because I'm in a distant part of the house right now. So anyway, I was like, well, that's interesting because I actually don't agree with that. I got into my masculine frame a bit. I was like, I really don't agree with that, darling, because we have Justin in the house. What's up, brother?
We got there.
Just started live without you. You just had me freestyling there. How are you, bro? Good to have you on.
Yeah, you too. Nice to meet you.
So, brother, I basically just got into a rant about a conversation I had this morning with my wife. And the conversation went along the lines of she had listened to a podcast, and on this podcast, the woman who was speaking was talking about how successful relationships between men and women look something like this. The woman is in the position of being like a black cat. Now, what do we think of when we think of a black cat? I don't know. What do you think of?
I think it gives you bad luck if you walk past a black cat.
Yeah, the witch's pet.
Yeah, and I've actually always seen that men are more like cats and women are more like dogs.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're like, a cats are a bit mysterious, sort of do their own thing. Yeah, they'll give you love and attention from time to time, where a dog's like, play with me, love me, love me.
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting this take.
yeah. And she explained that to me. She's like, well, what she's saying is a woman who's in her, strength or in her full womanhood in an ideal relationship is like this black cat, and the man is like a golden retriever. Instantly, something tweaked in me, bro. I was like, hang on a second. What is this? What is this information that is being peddled to you right now that you are just gobbling up because it makes you feel good and you're feminine? Some part of you feels good about this.
Yeah.
And we talked it out a bit, and then I went away. But something got stirred in me, bro. I was like, no, this ain't it. This ain't it. And so I ended up writing her a long message and just kind of expressing a bit of my masculine frame, my perspective on the situation. And I felt like I had to set that right. And this is a perfect lead in for our conversation, because I know that you have been on a healing journey. Just watching your videos, it's very obvious. You've been on a journey of exploring more of your feminine healing aspects, more of that feminine energy. But you've actually come full circle where you've realized, I need to bring in the masculine. I need to integrate. I need to show up in the full power and strength of a man whilst integrating these feminine elements of being connected to energy, of being connected to emotions. So maybe, brother, you could share a bit about that journey. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, and I will touch on the Labrador thing, as I think she's actually pointing on something that is very real for her, which is that men are wide-eyed puppy dogs when it comes to sort of sex and being allured to sex, and will simp and run around and make sure everything's okay with that allure to getting some woman in that way. And it's a problem. It's a big problem. You're from NZ, yeah?
Australia.
Oh, you're from Australia. So, yeah, I'm from Australia. And NZ and Australia I see is pretty similar in the conditioning and the things that has happened, especially within our cities and universities. And that sort of skewing of the polarities and the genders within and without. And then of men, not in their frame, and thinking that to be a man is to be like a puppy dog with women, make sure everything's okay, get their attention when they need. And on the own inner journey, my work began because I saw that those men undertaking some sort of a spiritual path, let's use that word because everyone sort of knows what it means in that sense, that the healing, feeling, feminine aspect of the man, there is a path when they start walking that path where it is very, very healing, where there are parts of their whole being that they haven't explored yet. And then this troll's funny in the comments.
Oh, yeah, he's been showing up on a few lately. We love him.
Yeah,
he's like our pet.
and that within that spirituality space, it is run by mostly women, which is great because they're very good at these healing modalities. But men who haven't sort of activated that masculine side of them into that more feminine lens, and over time, they become a bit more lost in it. Even within communication and the way people speak and what you speak about, like I feel like a man's gift in this time is discernment, is being able to stay in your center, is to be able to call things as they are. And in this non-judgment, love and light spirituality thing, it was like, everything's fine. It's all good. Let's just flow. And that aspect of life is all well and good, but we need a grounding and a framework of the masculine principle, because without that, we're lost in the swirl of life and we're in the flow, but we're just getting pushed and pulled around with the wind. So yeah, that led me on to what I do, just because when I was in it, I was like, where are these men role models? And I understand now that there isn't many masculine men in like new age spirituality, because they sort of graduate through it and head on to their own path. And dudes doing their own thing are like harder to find. You know what I mean? Like you live in a humble life. You got the wife and kids, yeah, and you do your thing. If you weren't on YouTube, I wouldn't know who you are. You know, they're out there, but they're just sort of doing their thing, looking after their own kingdoms. But I saw, yeah, with the dogma and what spirituality is, and even the non-judgment principle and all these things, I just saw a lack of like oomph, a lack of authenticity. And I think COVID was the big one where you're in Australia. So I saw the lack of anything during that time. And I was like, what? Isn't this what we're here for? To like go, that's not correct. I'm going to deliver my side of the argument to give some perspective in a world that's gone a bit mad. And it just wasn't there. And I felt that the sort of spiritual backbone of Australia fell down. And then like at the end, when it was all so obvious, they sort of began to stand up. And I was just like, it was too little too late. But that time ignited a lot of men, which was fantastic. And now I see, like with what I share with what you share, there's a heap of men on the sidelines going, yeah, I knew that. Thanks. Because they've sort of gone through that phase as well.
Sorry, brother, my Wi-Fi is bugging. Just going to move closer to the router. All right, we're closer to Wi-Fi now. So, yeah, you were saying there was that lack of backbone during COVID in terms of the men, and I completely agree with that. And I was one of them, to be honest. I didn't stand up. I didn't protest. I didn't wear the mask. I didn't take the jab. But in terms of actual voices speaking out against it, it was like, bro, what's going on? This is weird. Anyone who speaks against it gets shut down. And the men in my community are just going along with this, and they've all got masks on. What the fuck? So there's this real passiveness that seems to have taken over. I notice it a lot here in Australia, but in men in general, it's like, what's happened? Why do we accept this? Why do we just go along with these narratives that get shoved down our throat that we should be like women? And as you say, in spiritual circles, it's very evident. So I guess my question for you is, how did you get to a point where you were able to break free from that? And for any guys watching who are sort of stuck in that, how do you take the gift of the feminine, the gift of being in touch with your spirituality, but then transcend into that next level and be an integrated man?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, yeah, because even the word transcends a funny one, where I think a lot of people that begin the spiritual path are trying to go up. And a lot of men who come there, maybe they carry some shame and things around their primal nature, you know? So a lot when I work with men and myself was actually coming back down into my sexual energy. This is where semen retention and sexual energy transmutation could be a huge part of it. But like, embrace what it is to be a human. Don't try run away from any parts of yourself, because if you want to integrate, it's not a suppression. It's not a runaway. It's like, hang on, I am this. I do have this power. There is a part of me that wants to bang chicks, but I know that's not healthy, but I can't run from it. And it was sort of coming back down into that, building a relationship there. But I was lucky enough, and I guess unfortunately as well, I looked after my father as he passed away. So that 6 months journey looking after my dad, I got to see all the parts of the masculine I didn't take on because dad was quite dysfunctional, probably in my teen years, where you're probably meant to take on that energy. I sort of went different. He'd stayed in the hometown. He was a fisherman builder. I went and traveled the world, was a teacher, and did these things. But when I looked after my dad and got to see underneath the veil, I got to see the rejection of him was rejecting parts of my masculine. And although he isn't a perfect display of it, deep down he has all that. So I got an energy exchange with my dad for 6 months, and it was the greatest experience of my whole life. And there's a big story on the end of that, which I won't share today. But having that time with my dad allowed that energy exchange that I think is meant to happen for teenage boys with a father who would lead them towards manhood, where you'd go away from the mother and you'd step into that role of masculine. And I don't know about you, like when you've gone through different phases in your life, when you step into that new phase, you can sort of see it in other men. Like if you were a porn guy and you went to semen retention, then when you look at other men, you can see the porn in them, and you can see parts of helping. And I can see, and even men I work with, a lot of them will be like, yeah, I was more sensitive growing up and I got into the spirituality stuff. I didn't really have masculine role models when I grew up. And then if you grew up in our society where it was toxic masculinity or speaking your truth is, I need you to change your truth. So a lot of men carry shame around these like most potent, important parts of themselves, which often involves their sexual energy, their manhood, and then their voice. And yeah, that's what I saw happen. And for me, the catalyst of getting my balls back and dropping sexual shame, having that time with my dad, and then COVID all sort of happening within a couple of years, that awoke that part of me. It's like, hang on, no, I will stay in my center and speak my truth imperfectly. Like it's not always okay. But I see this in relationship as well, and you're in one, like, if you hold back a little truth that seems minute, which seems unimportant, and you just go, oh, I won't bring that up because that might make her feel blah, blah, blah. That grows in you. You know what I mean? You need to voice them. You need to bring them out because it can build and grow resentment. And then you can, it comes out in a wrong way. But if you become strong enough to be able to say, hey, I'm seeing this right now, and you're able to sit with feminine emotion or the opinions of the world that are coming in at you, telling you you're wrong, it sort of sharpens your resolve. And I guess a lot of men built self-respect through that COVID time for just standing on their own truth.
Absolutely. It's been a sharpening time, galvanizing time. It's really separated those who want to pursue the truth from those who are just content to be slaves. So you mentioned getting your balls back and healing sexual shame. That is a really pertinent topic for most of the guys watching right now. That's kind of where they're at. Can you talk us through what that process was like for you? What were some of the bosses you had to face? What were some of the uncomfortable things that you had to go through during that period?
Yeah, that was a hard time. And watching what shame does was a very cool experience, because at that time I knew I wasn't free and I was doing all the yoga stuff and I was doing all the spiritual stuff, but I knew there was like a rock under my pillow. I knew I was running away from a part of myself and I didn't really know how to reintegrate it. So I thought maybe if I did this, it'll just sort of fade away, which is not true with energy. Like it has to be transmuted. It can't be destroyed. And what it does, and like when you're carrying shame, there's sort of a dirty part of you that you don't want to be seen. And it's hard to take risks as a man. And speaking your truth is a risk in this society. So it can make you follow along. It can make you more of a slave. And being in the pornography era, the micro shames that dudes pick up from jerking off to porn has carryover effects. And for me, in that time, it was like, oh, this sexual thing's getting me into trouble. Like if I ever jerked off, it was like I was a terrible person. I can't control this. This is something that's taking over me, and you're trying to run away from it, and you pushing it away is bringing dudes into that cycle of like jerking off, covered in shame, the shame leading them back to porn, sort of thing. So that cycle is very common in this age. And what I had to do for that time was, instead of running away from it, go back into it. Understand that you can build a relationship with your sexual energy, even with your lower kingdom, your genitals, to have a relationship with that energy, which is outside of you jerking it off or wanting to have sex. It's sort of like you're wanting to get rid of it. Like getting rid of that energy is like, oh, I can be normal now. But there is ways to build a relationship there, to have a connection with that part of yourself, and then sort of operating with your energy in that lower area, more grounded. Because with spirituality and the ascension thing, what it was lacking was grounded dudes in action, or like that authentic spark. And this is only my perspective and others, but it's not the answer. But just for me, like I gauge my authenticity radar. I don't need to know all the details of the dude's life. I just sort of trust the energy. I'm like, oh, he's a good dude figuring his stuff out. I'll hang out with you. I don't really care about what spiritual secrets you've figured out in the universe. I'm more about like, oh, this is a good genuine dude. So yeah, that sexual shame component in this era. And the thing about semen retention, like this is a master key and it can really help. But sometimes dudes will run away from their genitals completely because they're like, I can't handle this. Now I'm going hardcore semen retainer. We're sometimes still having a relationship there, and like using that energy and being with that part of yourself can also have massive healing things occur. Even like that energy building up and sitting on some stored old memories and different things, it can all sort of illuminate where, yeah, that semen retention part I can see in the communities and things. And semen retention is awesome. You know that, I know that. But yeah, that's the one thing that I see of dudes becoming too rigid or using it as a tool to run away from some sexual anxieties, insecurities, fears.
So what would that actually look like? Building a relationship with your genitals, and not jerking off, as you say, but like what did it look like for you, if you wouldn't mind sharing, and what do you sort of share with other brothers who actually need to do that?
Yeah, it would depend on where a guy's at. Like everything, if I work with a guy, like obviously there's different things. Like some guys, it's getting that power back, getting that energy back. But as I said, most people have only been with that part of themselves when they're wanting something, which is jerking off or sex. And this is like one of the most powerful parts of our body, and with sex itself, like even in sex, if you're not in the present, if you're to connect to your arousal, you're not actually in it. So there's like a deprogramming phase where you wean yourself off porn and sort of understand your body. For dudes who maybe have some cock stuff or some shame stuff, even just holding that when you meditate, breathing into it, like playing around with it. Like as kids, most kids like hold their balls or flick it around and then they're told, that's dirty, that's bad, don't touch yourself. Where it's not. Like I'll often be sitting at my computer and my hand is on my cock and balls. You know, there's no sexual thing about it, but there's a relationship there, and I don't carry any shame about that aspect of myself, because the pressure dudes have put on them about performance anxiety and what it is to be a man and all of these things. Shame and sex go together really strong, because shame likes to live in the dark, and all of the dirty sex stuff you thought about or do is in the dark in your closet. So it's like initially getting through shame is voicing it. Like if a dude's got porn addiction or he uses prostitutes or he does some things that he's not proud of, just like repenting and having a person you can express that to, just to release the shackles and understand that high yogis and high spiritual people and all these people on different levels are making mistakes with sexual energy. Like this is the most potent energy in the universe. It's created all of this. And it's like, why haven't I figured it out yet? Because this is, you know, as men, we want to like this perfect technique, this perfect ritual, this perfect routine that's going to make life this linear thing, but it's not. But yeah, building a relationship with it can look many different ways, but spend loving time there. Like even the way dudes do this is often super aggressive for one reason, rather than like a loving massage and a like, we are ride and die, brother. We've been through a lot of stuff. Like, I'm sorry for the ways I've mistreated you, and like building this new relationship with that is more nourishing for your soul rather than an energy dump and a stress relief.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I really like that idea of building a relationship rather than just running away. So let's talk about women. I'm curious to know, what's your relationship with women like now, having come out of that, let's call it, very limiting, very feminized, healing, energy work, tantra sort of space? How do you approach women now in just your everyday life? What's your way of dealing with sexual attraction with women, of maybe transmuting that? I just want to know what that looks like for you.
Yeah, and it's still an ongoing process, because so for me, that spiritual phase where I didn't have any polarity, that was only about a year and a half of my life. And before that phase, I went from shy guy, insecure, like good guy, but he didn't have the confidence to talk on you. You know, I still had good friends. I was still on the edge of the cool group. I'd still get with girl occasionally, but I was still people pleasing a bit. Then when I moved to Europe and moved around, I found me. You know, I started going to different parties, and my goals were, I was working as a teacher, but my goals were to set myself free with people. I love people. I love to understand dynamics. And I was like, what makes him magnetic? What makes him magnetic? What are these things? And what I realized was it was the dude most comfortable in himself that was just doing what he wanted. It was magnetic. And I developed that through dance, which also developed my ability. And I was like, oh, am I attractive to women? Can I get with women? Oh, and then I never chased. Like, I understood the push-pull thing naturally back then, and I'd sort of do my thing, but I was secretly doing it to attract a woman. You know what I mean? And so there was this liberating phase of me getting with more women during that and working on my sex. And then I got in a mad relationship. That was awesome. And I was like, whoa, I've done it. And then the shame hit, and then the spiritual fake trip did its sort of chapter. Now, from that, when I bounced back from that, I got in a relationship with a woman who I retained my seed, but we were still driven by lust. You know, it was sort of like our wounds and things were from there. We were very highly sexual beings. And it was an epic relationship, and we'd have sex a lot, but I'd only ejaculate like once every week, maybe. And it was awesome, but even looking at that, there was still the foundation that was wrapped on sex. And right now, I can see how a lot of programming for porn and us jerking off to demons as we grew up, a lot of our sexual impulse is still from hoes and porn stars. And the chick, you're like, oh, she's dangerous, but I want to bang her. And that's where the semen retention path is good to like purify that and just let that sort of fade away. So from after her, like, because sex changes, you know, like back in the 20s, like banging a hot girl would be cool, you know, when now it's like, this doesn't entice, like I want something deeper. And last year I moved to Indonesia, and I was in Australia, I would pretty much not get with women, but in Indonesia I was like, whoa, there's a lot going on here. And initially I was like, nothing until it can be serious. Then I was like, you know what, you might be too rigid here, Justin, just let it happen. Then I had some beautiful spontaneous experiences, probably over a few months, that were nourishing. And then the lust tricks you. I mean, then instead of it being spontaneous, you're seeking spontaneity, which is not how it works. And then I got with some women and was like, oh, well, I can have these experiences with my ex, so let's move into conscious lovemaking with this woman. It doesn't really work. It's an energetic thing. It's a connection thing. It's a level of awareness thing. It's a love thing. So I sort of got to dissolve some fantasies about that and go, yeah, that's not nourishing. That is losing my power and seed. And then this year, yeah, not that I count days. I think counting streaks is silly and so on. But yeah, now I've been more on the semen retention. I did have one slip up with a woman, not even a slip up, like after it was. I was like, wow, that was the energy. I opened up lust eyes, and that attracts demon woman. You know what I mean? Where when I'm focused on my work, surfing, playing pool, going to the beach, the solar masculine flame, like they start to orbit.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And in Bali, like guys are getting destroyed by women. As soon as I got here, dudes are like, what are you doing with women here? They're like everywhere. And you know how they cost money and you know how they blah, blah, blah. It's like, because you're playing those power games and that dynamic and your attention in this place, because there's so many and because of the power of the energy here, if you do that external, it runs you down and you're tired and your creativity goes and your work falls away. So I love that because it brings me into a high accountability.
Awesome, brother. So there's kind of levels to this. You mentioned when you switch into lust eyes, it changes everything. It changes the way that women treat you. It's like the demon women come out. So do you actually practice some kind of bouncing of your eyes, or is it more an energetic thing where you just drop into your center, drop out of lust, and when you're looking at women, you're just looking at them in a different way? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I would say I definitely know when I'm not doing it. So when I'm looking at her to get the smile back and to get the little ego hit and to get the validation that I'm the man. And that was what happened at the end of last year. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm not playing it out. I'm not banging heaps of girls. I'm not ejaculating often, but it's still energy, you know, and it's still bringing me into that. And yeah, I know when I'm like, yeah, if I'm sitting at the cafe and a woman walks in and we make that like just like, oh, hi, you know, and it's natural and it's beautiful and it's blah, blah, blah. And then there's seeking to get that. And yeah, as I said, the energy here is so strong in that way that I will know within a few days. Like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, maybe it's coffee, maybe it's this, maybe it's this. It's like, no, you've been seeping energy out. And it's fun. That. And don't get too hard on yourself. Like, guys, if you came to this place and saw what is around, your body does it. You know, it's a natural thing for like, whoa. So you can laugh at yourself, you know, just like you're on your scooter and you're okay, and you slowly wean off it. You know what I mean? It takes time for that to come out. Don't beat yourself up. But there's times where, the body's still moving, but you're not giving much away. And then there's times where you're wanting a bit more. You're wanting the response. You're wanting the validation. And hey, like, as I said, that chapter I had in Europe where I developed that was very boosting, even if it's for my ego, but a healthy ego in like, all right, I do have power. I can get with women. I trust myself that if I truly like someone, I can talk to them. I can have beautiful relationships with them. I will benefit their life, you know, and because I see that with some dudes who maybe haven't gone into that'll run into like celibacy and semen retention. And it's like, are we running away from the insecurities and the anxieties that are around women? Can you do both? You know what I mean? And for me, I've played out a lot of fantasies. Like that part of me, I don't need to have attention on that right now. Like my life is better when it's focused on my work. As I said, my favorite hobbies, God, and let even trusting the universe in the right woman is going to come into my sphere at one point. And because I have the confidence from the past, who I am, I'm confident that I will talk to that when it's there in front of me. That's probably not the best term to use.
Objectification. So, I think you've touched on a really good point, which is that when you're focused on your thing as a man, when you're focused on your purpose, your work, you're enjoying yourself, you're surfing, you're playing pool, you're not looking for the validation. You're not smiling at women to get a smile back. You're in your power. You're on your path. You're in your flow as a man, and they do start orbiting. But it's just that it's maintaining that when the temptation arises. This is the sneakiness of lust. It's like, oh, yes, I'm on my path. I'm doing my work. I've got some orbiters. I've got some girls trying to message me, wanting to hit me up. Oh, I can tell that they want to sleep with me. And all of a sudden, there's this little switch that goes off in your head, and you're like, I'm the man. How much of this can I get? And then all hell breaks loose from that point.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing. It's so crafty what it does. Like I literally did 2 months where I really was training the eyes. Like I'm not even going to engage. And then that voice comes up like, maybe you are too rigid here, Justin. Maybe you can let it up. And then, within a couple of days, it was just like, have some interactions. And my creativity did come on, you know, that energy was activated. And I was like, yeah, this is healing. This is good. And within a week, I'd already made a mistake and then got to see, that was the trick. That started 5 days ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it isn't like, don't look at women, blah, blah, blah. You've got to find your shade. You've got to understand where you're at. You've got to trust yourself to navigate and understand that life is temptation. Life is making a million mistakes, and you are forgiven for repenting, you know, missing the mark. But it was fascinating. I was like, wow, that was mastery. Like if we're calling it a demon, you know, I'm like, wow, you sneaky. Well done.
Yeah. Maya, the craftiest of them all. So, brother, you've started a community recently. I just wanted to mention that. And it's called the Men of Knowledge. So what is that all about? What are you creating there? What are you cultivating there in the Men of Knowledge?
So, I find that even looking at knowledge, we live in a knowledge age. Like you have infinite amount of knowledge at our fingertips, but what we are lacking is connection. What we are lacking is being in the energy of other men. And a lot of people on the more spiritual path have had to be somewhat of lone wolves. And when I speak to these dudes, they're like, yeah, I tried here. It's not for me. That was a bit floaty. I have these friends and they're cool on this thing, but I can't go fully deep. And I feel like men are suffering from a lack of deep conversations, being around other men and being able to discuss big topics such as these and many others, but also like build something. You know what I mean? Like the men's work in the spiritual stuff was always like, we sit there, I say all my shames and vulnerabilities that I'm going through now, we nod, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, where I'm curious what happens when you bring a bunch of these dudes together to have big conversations consistently. Because even with things like COVID and things that might happen in the future, one of the key things was like, if I had just a few other dudes where we were able to talk about this from the start to like go, hang on, we are seeing clearly here. We are like, what are we going to do about it? We can be ready for that. You know, we can be, because yeah, let's say you have 20 dudes and it's crazy times. There's 15 of us who are a bit like, but there's 5 who are like on today. It helps us, brings us, it helps us remember, because even with the vices and addictions and all the things that men have these days, a lot of it's through boredom and loneliness. And when you can be on a call, like this might sound weird, but after this call, we've had a good chat, we've connected, we feel good. I'm going to go play pool or do some work. I'm not going to go jerk off. You know what I mean? We're on a good energy. You know, It feels like we're doing our thing. And as you said, with women, if I make a sweet YouTube video and I felt really inspired and then I go sit at the cafe, you know, my energy's beaming. My friend will be like, whoa, you made a good video today, didn't you? I'm like, yeah, how do you know? He's like, well, your energy's through the roof. And that's real. Like it's good dopamine, you know, it's not to get too high on your own self, but it's like there's a different energy when we're getting juiced up from our creation. Because, yeah, this life force energy is creation energy. And we need that life force to step onto our mission and our purpose. And I feel like having big conversations with men, it's a place to just remember, have these conversations and be involved. Like a lot of these dudes, you know, they have things to serve and they will in this. You know, it's like, oh, I want to run this. Oh, this is what I do. Maybe some men are interested. And yeah, it's cool to see already just beginning. And yeah, I'm curious to see where it goes.
That's awesome, brother. So if people want to follow you, they can find you Justin Shears, Shears, and I'm sure you have all your community details there. Brother, before we go, because my battery's about to die, but is there anything else that you want to encourage men to do, or any kind of practice, or just any bit of inspiration you want to leave us with?
The message that I say for most young men is to trust yourself. And when I speak to men who are in a lot of pain, they're beating themselves up more than they need to. But this life is like crazier and weirder than we expected. And we're meant to make mistakes. And if you can genuinely like go, oh yeah, I messed up, I'm going to try better next time, and allow that to sort of move through quicker, the better. Because yeah, when I see suffering, it's always that perpetual inner critic beating the smithereens out of a person consistently. And it's not God. It's not your conscience or God is allowing you to see that you've made a mistake. This is great. But it doesn't keep going bang, bang, bang. You know, it's like you're falling down, as all great men have. Trust yourself, pick yourself back up and move forward once again.
Very well said, brother. Well, Justin, it's been an honor hearing from you and speaking with you and getting some of your perspectives. I just want to say thank you and keep up the good work, brother. I really respect the message you're putting out and we need more of it. So thank you.
Thank you, bro. You too. Appreciate you touching base and all the work you do. And where are you in Oz?
I'm in a place called Port Macquarie, halfway
Oh,
between Byron and Sydney.
Yeah, I know Port Macquarie. I'm from Country Vic, but I was living near Byron before I came over here. Have done a road trip or two through Port Macquarie, but maybe our paths will cross at some point. And yeah, thank you, sir. Respect.
Thank you, bro. Talk soon. See you guys.